Namaskar Bharat. For the first time ever, we are hosting an MBA Times Fair event specifically tailored towards candidates from India. But if you're joining from any other country, feel free to stay because the frameworks can still be useful to you. The series of live streams will consist of marketing like less like marketing like other MBA fairs do, but more of quality content that focuses on completing important sections of your MBA applications like your resume, essays, LORs, and all. Depending on the availability, we will dive deeper into the application of what we learn here by looking at the samples. So let's get to it. Today, we'll be discussing the Tuck School of Business. Here is where you will be if you manage to get in. And this is actually the bell tower at Dartmouth College. And that's where Tuck actually is. This is not Tuck School of Business. And your odds to get in are going to go up if you stay in and watch the entire session until the end. And wait for a little surprise, by the way, before we start looking at the samples. So let's put this image in the background and look at the samples while you keep getting inspired by that beautiful picture. Couple of things before we look at the agenda. First, you can scan this QR code that will take you to a WhatsApp group. This WhatsApp group will serve as a medium for you to ask any questions while in the session. And towards the end, when we have live Q&A, you can get those answered live. If you have questions later, also the group can serve as a medium to have those answered also. And this eliminates the biggest problem that many people have been facing in webinars, that their questions are not getting answered. And we've just solved that. Let's look at the agenda now. So we'll look at the values that define the school and the class profile first, which will help you understand the statistical requirements and also the personality fit. Next, we'll look at the essays and resume, which are obviously the backbone of your application. We'll also look at the LOR samples, and I will give you the tips on what exactly a good LOR is supposed to be. And this goes without saying that you will not be the one writing the LOR, so you can share the sample with someone else. It will also be shared in the same Q&A group for which the QR code is still up for scanning. So scan this. We'll also share this towards the very, very end so that you can join in. So since we are on a time crunch, let's look at the class profile and the values. And the statement from Tuck basically says that they want to develop wise, decisive leaders who better the world through business. Pretty interesting statement there. And we'll discuss what exactly is the dissection of that in a little bit, but let's look at the class profile. So the class size is 304 people. The GRE average there is quant at 160 and verbal at 162, so about 322, actually exactly 322. So if you're an Indian candidate who is considered overrepresented by the admissions team, the idea here is to stay in the 99th percentile because that's basically the bare minimum requirement for the overrepresented candidate. So that's my suggestion. The GMAT average is at 727 for the legacy, which is getting phased out, and the focus edition average is at 671. Same rule, like try to get to the 99th percentile if you're someone who is from an overrepresented pool. The international student population is at 22%. This population is purely international, so people who are coming from a different country without dual citizenship. And I think with dual citizenship included, the number touches 34%. So there's about 12% people who have dual citizenship. The work experience on average is at 5.7 years, and it's usually skewed towards left, but I generally tend to tell people that 3 to 8 years of work experience should be completely fine. So anything in that range and you're good to go for the American schools at least. And now we have the keywords. Keywords actually form the basis of the entire application. So they are the foundation on the basis of which your essays, resumes, and LORs need to be constructed. So it goes without saying that anywhere you go, whatever words you say, you need to have these keywords subtly communicated to Tuck. So what are these keywords? So you can see the screen, there are so many of those. So the first keywords on the top right is well-rounded. They want someone who is a holistically developed person, not just developed in one direction. someone who's innovative. We've also discussed this in the previous webinars that innovative is pretty much becoming the norm now. So someone who is very creative, someone who has conviction, someone who is wise, someone who is decisive, like we saw in the statement, someone who's transformative, can change lives, not just transactional, someone who has this global perspective, someone who's trustworthy, someone who can connect to the community, someone who can be a part of the people, someone who has empathy, someone who's ethical. So all of these are like things that you need to think about before thinking of your stories. So one of the ways to brainstorm your stories is like just take one keyword, try to understand what Tuck means by this keyword, and try to think of a story that associates with that particular keyword. If there are multiple keywords and one story associates with that, that's even better because that's how you create the essays. So these are the keywords, and that's how you brainstorm. I'll let you guys take a screenshot of this if you need to. Otherwise, we can move on. Moving on, we have the essays. Essays obviously are the stories that you tell the business school. And the first essay, as we can see, is the career essay. So why do you want to get an MBA? Why now? How will the distinct Tuck MBA contribute to achieving your goals and aspirations? What particular aspects of Tuck will be instrumental in your growth? So it's basically asking you what exactly are the gaps you're trying to fill by going to Tuck. And if you're someone who is trying to make a career pivot, this question is simply easy for you. So let's see how to answer this question. So the first thing you need to do is to identify the genuine gaps that you have in your experience that are preventing you from achieving your post MBA goals. So let's say you want to be in consulting post MBA. So Tuck is known for consulting. It's great. It's fine. But what do you lack? Maybe you're an engineer who wants to gain enough business skills and enough business knowledge so that you can transition into consulting more smoothly. That's okay. That's a genuine gap. You can say that pretty simply. And why now is the right time? Because they're looking at people for within this age bracket. So that's again one of the things that is a very honest communication. But you can say that within this experience, you have gained enough skills as an engineer, and now you want to go for something else. So that's basically how you identify certain genuine gaps in your experience. Then you select one, not no more than one broad resource. So let's say you want to talk about the consulting club at Tuck, and whatever they call their consulting club, you need to use the exact same terminology. That's the first thing. And the second thing is not to dive too deep into the resource so much so that you forget that you have to talk in depth about just the consulting club and how exactly does that associate with your goal. And maybe there are some networking sessions that happen in that club. Maybe there are some events where people are coming in as speakers. Maybe there are some alumni who are coming back to the community and giving back. So that's also another way of bringing up a resource. Next one, I think, could be some of these case workshops that they host in the club. So that could also be something to bring up if you want to think about that. So these are the ways you just think about like, okay, this is one resource. How exactly am I going to think about what activities happen in these clubs? So you speak with the current students, tell them that my goal is to go in consulting. What should I look into so that I can be well prepared while I transition from X to Y? They'll tell you what resources are there, what kinds of speakers are coming, what kinds of recruitment pipeline looks like, what the career center is doing for them. All those things come under that exact same umbrella of one resource. Now, the easier way of answering this question is to first dive deeper in with keywords that you want more keywords to be there so that you're associating with it. The second thing is that you want to associate your why with the why of the school. So people are the Tech Business School, for example, is looking for decisive and wise leaders. So your why now is going to show how decisive you are about this decision and how exactly do you come to that conclusion that Tuck would be the right place for you. So when you speak with the person who is telling you about the resource, this is how you should communicate about a particular resource. So you need to remember this term: who, when, what, why, how. So you start with who told you about the resource, When do you plan to utilize that resource? What was the resource? Why is that resource important to you? And that is where you insert more keywords. That this is why I believe that keyword is more, that these resources are more important because Tuck is this kind of a community. Maybe you bring up the global experience that Tuck offers, which kind of gives you that real life consulting kind of an experience if you want to go in consulting. So that's another thing to think about. So why and how exactly do you plan to give back to the community and at the same time utilize the resource for yourself? Because Tuck is also about altruism, because many of the people at Tuck believe that they want their alums to come back to the community and give back to the people. Simple and straightforward. There's nothing too much to overthink in this. Just make sure that you're highlighting your who, when, what, why, and how in that sequence, so that a full spectrum of what that resource is, how exactly is that important, how will you be utilizing, why is that important to you, will be covered within that. So that literally answers the entire question. So how will the Tuck MBA contribute to the achieving your goals and aspirations? You talk about the resource that is available at Tuck, make it more specific to Tuck by adding the keywords, and what particular aspects of Tuck will be instrumental in your growth, which will be shown through the keywords. That's basically it. This is an integrated essay. You just show them why now is the right time, how you're decisive, how Tuck is exactly going to help you. So that would be the idea to answer this question. The second essay is uniqueness essay. So it goes like this. Tell us who you are as a person. How have your values and experiences shaped your identity and character? How will your unique background contribute to Tuck and or enhance the experience of your classmates? Simple. So here, one keywords that kind of comes in my head is transformation or transaction. Why is that keyword coming in my mind? Because that's exactly what Tuck wants out of its students. So someone who wants a transformative experience, someone who has craved that in their past life, and how exactly is that going to contribute to Tuck's experience for others? So this is also like kind of an altruism check. So focus on the others. What exactly do others get out of you? Paint a picture of your past experiences. Let's say it was your academic experience and your professional experience. So you can keep a balance between both, and what kinds of activities you're involved in. Show them that you're a collaborative person. Show them how exactly have you given back to those organizations and communities that you've served in the past. So paint that kind of a picture, and even in your present, how exactly are you giving back to that place or that organization or that community that you were trying to think about. So it always is about the giving back character. And once you give them the glimpse of the character, your uniqueness will automatically shine. Like, what was the one thing about you that made you shine in that community obviously shows who you are as a person. So that's basically how exactly your unique background contributes to the Tux experience of your classmates. The easiest way to answer this question is if you attend Tux info sessions. So attending these info sessions is really important, because once you attend these info sessions, you'll kind of see the language patterns that the students are using. What exactly is Tux showing that these are the things that we value? So this is basically how you kind of make yourself stand out from the crowd. So that's my suggestion. And this is how you answer this essay. So think in terms of like academic life and professional life, add those up, try to paint a picture of your experiences and show yourself as someone who is a giving person towards those community and organizations. And that should do the job for you. And that is your uniqueness. One more thing, I think, before we move on to essay number 3, is that if you're talking about uniqueness, and I'm telling you that just talk about academic and professional life, you must be thinking that everyone has that. That's true, but like your academic life and your professional life is different from many of the other students. So think of it in the direction of your experiences, not theirs, and not just like in terms of the framework that I just told you about. That would be the idea. And don't go too much in depth on how giving you are. Just make sure that there is a subtle indication that you're someone who is an altruistic person who has given back to that community. And it should always be the truth, obviously. It can't be like something you just made up. So that Tuck can see that you are that kind of a person, right? Moving on to the empathy essay, which goes something like this. Describe a time when you meaningfully invested in someone else's success without immediate benefit to yourself. What motivated you? What was the impact? Now, I took a pause there for a very simple reason. I literally told you to show your character as an altruistic person, and this essay is literally about altruism. So you can see like how tech is really trying to make itself a school that believes in that humanitarian side of people. Because you will be associated with a network of people who are going to do this for you. Maybe let's say out of the class of the 304 students that we've seen, let's say some people like slip through the cracks. There are like about 100 of those, but there are like 200 others who will still be there for you so that they can invest in your success without any benefit to them. So you show yourself as that person. That's what Tuck wants, and that's what Tuck values, and that's exactly what I have been creating as the basis of your entire application. So ensure that quality of yours, that character of yours, is reflected not just in the essay number two, but also in the essay number three. But essay number three gets more, you know, in depth because they also ask about your motivation. So let's look at the framework first. So this is obviously testing your give back attitude. So obviously think about a time when you have given back. And your motivation has to be altruistic. I'll talk a little bit about what I mean by that. And then you can treat this like DEISA. The DEISA is like, tell me about a time when you've been inclusive, tell me about a time when you've been collaborative, etc. So if you don't have that example, I'm pretty sure that if you're applying to other schools, there are some DEISAs in that. And if you want to take an inspiration from that, that is completely fine. So the way I want you to deal with this question is to think about your motivation for doing good for someone. You think that certain problems should not have existed for a certain person who was seeing certain challenges. I know I said certain a lot there, but if you're saying that your motivation to help eliminate the barriers for someone who is from, let's say, an underprivileged background was your motivation, that's all right. But why just that? Like, why does it matter to you? Why exactly are you the kind of person who will do that? Think deeper. What exactly is your motivation? Is the motivation coming from a position of privilege where you want to feel good about yourself, that you did good for someone else? Or is this actually coming from a place where you want to make the world a better place and this is just your way of giving back to the world? You see the difference between the thought processes and that? That exactly is what Tuck likes. So you have to be able to communicate why exactly are you helping someone and what's in it for them, not you. So it's an outward focused essay. So if I'm doing something good for someone, this often I don't really get much out of it. It's just like maybe they'll get successful, they'll be happy in their life, the world will be a happier place. It's completely fine. So that's one of the ways to think about this. Your motivation can be different from this. I'm not going to impose one motivation on you. The way you can actually check your motivation's alignment with Tuck is if you look at the keywords that I told you about, you put those keywords in the generative AI platform, and then you show your motivation to the generative AI platform and say that, are these two things aligned? And let the generative AI tell you whether it is actually aligned or not, what exactly could be the gaps, how exactly could that be perceived, etc., etc. And using generative AI as a tool like that is completely fine, but it is not fine to use generative AI as a way to create the entire essay. So that is forbidden, and you might actually get rejected, and you will get rejected. Tuck has a very low acceptance rate. So please be mindful of that. And I am a big advocate of AI. I believe that AI can be used as a tool. It will save you a lot of time. It will save you a lot of energy, but if you use it in a more healthy sense. So there's the third essay. And now we'll move on to the resume section. So for the resume, it's pretty simple and straightforward that you need a resume in front of you to see what exactly should you be doing. But I'll just tell you an acronym. If your resume is following that acronym, you're fine. If your resume is not following that acronym, you're in trouble. So the acronym is FCQBG. And the F there stands for format. So resume obviously needs to have some important sections like your name, email address, phone number, and if possible, your LinkedIn profile on the top. This is usually followed by the education, then employment section, then the extracurriculars. That's completely fine. While there is no specific format, I still believe that only the most important sections should be kept. The space is limited and you only have like one page. So like why waste that space? Now, here is an example of certain sections that are not really relevant. People using the skills section and writing the technical certifications, which have nothing to do with their post MBA goals. They have nothing to do with their MBA, and they're still putting it right there. So that's a waste of space. Then we have like the education section that usually comes first, but it's fine if you're going in the increasing or decreasing order. So employment can come first, education can also come first, whichever you like. So the education section must list your bachelor's and master's degrees if you have one, and a short bullet points on what your extracurriculars were during your time there. The thing is, the purpose of this section is to see if you will be involved in a similar capacity in the business schools. So be intentional about this. If you ever attended a business school session, you must know that they say that the past activities are a great reflection of your future. That's exactly what matters. I got a lot of questions about how to write your employment if you're also a part time business owner. It's perfectly fine if you separate those sections and you write down work experience as one section and entrepreneurial experience as another section. That's totally fine. And when you have the samples, you will be able to see that yourself because I have created the samples very intentionally to so that you can actually see that. So that's format. Consistency, which is C. By consistency, I mean the consistency in the format of your resume bullet points. The most popular industry format is the PARS format. So PARS stands for problem, actions, results, and skills used. As the acronym already suggests, you start by defining the problem that you're trying to solve, be it marketing, engineering, sales, operations, whatever. And then you move on to define the actions you took to solve the problem. Because obviously, if you're not solving a problem, what exactly are you doing in the business? You're just sitting around. And if you're sitting around, then you're not the right person for an MBA. So obviously, PARS makes more sense. And what results came out of your efforts and your actions, and what skills were used in solving that problem. So it's a pretty comprehensive format. Many people love this because they get to show all the skills that they have, show the problem that they've tried to solve, show their business skills, show their people skills, because people skills are what matter. So that's basically the idea there. So parse format is the most holistic one. PAR format is just like parse format, but with skills section removed. And it helps shorten the bullets, but the skills are kind of blended into the actions in a way. So that's basically the idea there. Then there is the RAS format, which is results, actions, and skills, where putting the results first helps you make the impact come first. And in case someone is skimming through your resume, they can get surprised as to like, how did you manage to do that? And makes them more curious to learn more about you. So RAS format has its own benefits, sparse format has its own benefit, and PR has its own place. So there is no preference for one over the other, but I have to tell you that you shouldn't be mixing them all in one resume. Only one consistent bullet format for one resume. So par, parse, or RAS, or not and. So make sure that you're just sticking to one bullet format. Then we have the quantify. So quantifying your impact. That's what many of the people must have heard in the MBA admissions industry so many times, and it's literally most heard of. So your bullet needs to be well quantified. So while quantification is usually more or less mandatory in the impact, it would not hurt to mention the size of the team you led in a particular incident to make the bullet point even more powerful. If you think you don't know how to quantify the bullet, that's okay. That's completely fine. Just think about why you exist in the organization. Your why in the organization will give you some ideas. And even if you don't know how to do that, just try to see like how exactly is the business making money out of you, because they're obviously not just keeping you for nothing. So how exactly is the business using you? And the thoughts will start popping up. This is how my business is using me. This is how my business is using me. How I'm investing so many hours and they are getting all the money. I'm getting nothing. So that's great. You can quantify that now. So that's the idea there. And that's how you have those thoughts popping up. Also, as it says on the slide, you can highlight operational efficiency, revenue increase, sales, whatever in terms of like numbers, percentage, cash, depending on whatever you have done. Just remember that you need to enter the currency of the country that you have applied to. So in case of tuck, it would be US dollars. I can understand that because of the currency exchange rate difference and purchasing power parity, the converted amount may look smaller in dollars. So like if you're if you're earning less in Indian rupees and your impact has also been very small in maybe like lakhs or something, that's all right. The business schools actually do understand that. But you can do one more thing for helping yourself. You can accompany this like increase in sales, like in terms of dollar amount, with a percentage also. That this is what the increase was. So overall, it can also show that you had a greater impact. So that's just one way of helping yourself. B stands for branding. This point is perhaps one of the most important ones, and many people forget this also. So branding is pretty straightforward. I usually use this phrase, which kind of goes like this: a hero can rarely be a sage, and a sage can rarely be a rebel. So you can see all three have different kinds of personalities. A hero is someone who steps in, takes the responsibility for the people, and solves their problems. And then the people rally behind them. A sage is someone who shares the wisdom and helps solve the problems of the people again, and people rally behind them because of their intelligence and their wisdom. A rebel is someone that disrupts the status quo by creating something completely different from the norm. And what used to be, and the rebellious attitude, their uniqueness, gets people to rally behind them because they were way too frustrated with the status quo. So, one of the prerequisites of being a rebel is that people have to be actually frustrated with the current situation. Because if you come in and change something that people are very uncomfortable with, there will be a lot of problem with that. So a precursor way too early in your life, if you are not someone who is extraordinary. So ordinary people like us. So for us, basically like creating that global change is a big deal. So rebellious attitude is something that I have seen in a lot of change makers. But at the same time, like if you try to associate this phrase with Yale, so not Yale, Tuck, my bad. I don't know why Yale is in my mind, but if you try to associate with the first statement that we read, wise, decisive leader, it aligns more with the sagely kind of personalities. People rally behind others because of their intelligence, and that sage also has a collaborative kind of a nature where like there is that form of togetherness, and there is like sharing of perspectives, ideas, and trying to becoming more knowledgeable basically. So you can see like Tuck's personality is a little bit more aligned with that sagely attitude, but that does not mean that if you're a hero you cannot get into Tuck, and if you're like a rebel you cannot get into Tuck. You still have to try to see how exactly are those values getting aligned with Tuck's. So you're like a business leader, and the way you show your brand, that needs to stay consistent, not just in your resume, but also in your essays and also in your LOR. So your people skills matter. That's what I've been saying for the last 3 points. I'll say that again so that you can remember that. Now, let me give you an example of why I'm saying that the brand matters the most in all three. Let's say you've asked your supervisor to write you a letter of recommendation. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Now, your supervisor has written one of the best LORs possible, very glowing recommendation. Everything is positive, nothing wrong still. And they've branded you as someone who's a rebel. And now you want to associate yourself with Tuck, and you have like created an essay which shows you as a sage, like a sage like personality, basically, like sage branding. So everything is fine. Your essays are fine. Your LOR is fine. Your resume is also fine because you've created the resume keeping in mind that sagely idea because you attended our session. But the LOR is about rebellious attitude, and you're like talking how you are kind of like a sagely personality. So that creates an imbalance. And you can see this is very applicable in your uniqueness essay, where you are trying to just talk about what exactly is your attribute, what makes you unique. And now there is a misalignment in your essays and your LORs, that the LOR says rebel, the essay says sage, and that is how your application goes into the dustbin. So, like, try to make sure that you're keeping it well aligned. And that is also why in all the other sessions also I've said this. Try to keep all three things well aligned and create new ones. Like the resume, essays, and LORs have to be new. They have to be new essays, new resumes, and new LORs for every single school, at least in the top 15, because the acceptance rate is so low, you could get rejected. If this is your top choice school, Tuck is a top choice for many of the people because they like to live in like this whole, the woods and kind of like a village setting. And there are not as many business schools because usually business schools are located in place of business. So there are not many opportunities for people to find other schools, and Tuck is usually like one of the most unique ones just because of that attitude. So, sorry, not attitude, attribute. So, just because of that one thing, you could get rejected, and that's your first choice school, and then you're left with some choices that you will have to settle for. So, this is the difference between an impactful resume, essay, and LOR versus a generic one, because many people just use one LOR. While there's nothing wrong with that if you craft it carefully, but in most of the cases, your personality just slips. And, you know, there is misalignment, things may not work out, and you get rejected, and then you get a ding analysis from someone, and you don't even know what went wrong. That also happens. It's completely fine. So moving on to G. G stands for goals, and this is perhaps the most overlooked part, forgetting that your resume needs to contain transferable skills more relevant to your post-MBA goals. Now, here's how you can modify your resume to meet those requirements. First, take the industry. Let's assume consulting for Tuck. And then let's take the function associate, because post MBA you usually get into the associate position. Then the target company, McKinsey is fairly hierarchical. So it starts with associate. So McKinsey, let's take McKinsey. In what would be the school sphere location? New York. Okay, so you're trying to target McKinsey New York office for the associate position in the management consulting industry. Fairly general role. And once you get this information, just type the job in the search bar on the internet, and you will likely find it on the McKinsey's website. What exactly is the job description? What exactly are the attributes they are looking for? And once you look at the job description, you can pick out the key skills from the job description and see if your bullet points have those skills somewhere shown, and you can plug those in based on what skills McKinsey is looking for. So those key skills will automatically be added. If you're using the PARS format or RAS format, you can use those skills. So the better way of dealing with this is to use generative AI again, and just put your resume bullets on the Gen AI platform, and then you put the website's job description on the Gen AI platform. Ask it to give you the key skills from the job description, which are overlapping with your own bullet points and the keywords that are coming out from the job description. And it will literally give you what you need. Easy, work becomes much easier. And you have not used generative AI to create the bullet points. You've just used the generative AI as a tool to give you what is the overlapping item. So that is allowed, but creating the entire resume from the generative AI is not allowed. So that there is the difference. That's what you need to understand. And that completes the essays and resume. And here we are at the end of this session. There's a little news for you before we move on to the Q&A and the samples. MBA Times is actually offering the Hail Mary service at a discount of 50%. You will only have to pay $250 per school to get personalized one-time feedback on your whole application, from resumes, essays to extracurriculars. Everything will be covered in that. You can use the code TUCK Mega Fair 2025 to avail this offer. We also have the bulk discounts should you choose to opt for it. So the website will have the option to select the number of schools that you want to apply to, so 6 or 7 schools, whatever you want. And there will be a code sent to you with the bulk discount of all of these things. If you don't want the bulk discount, it's still available at $250 per school, which is literally the application fees. So I think you should be able to afford that. And you can scan this QR code if you want to go to the website. And if you don't want to scan the QR code, you can also go to www.mba-times.com/code to request this code yourself. And this offer is limited to the Mega Fair MBA registrants and attendees only. So since you've attended the fair, and I'm assuming you have also registered, you should be qualified. This session will also be available for a couple of hours online before it becomes private. So now is the time for Q&A. I've pulled up the slide right here. So you can just scan this QR code and join the Tux WhatsApp group so that you can ask any questions you have on the application, and I'll be there to answer that. The live session will take place until 10 o'clock Indian Standard Time. And basically, that's all. I think we should close the live stream, and I'll see you guys on WhatsApp.